yesterday.
Oh, geez.
That was terrible.
Yeah.
So did Eddie Deco, bunch of people died yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
What a good day, yeah.
Oh, man.
And you heard that song, you know, there.
Okay, I guess I'll call the meeting to order. Somebody's coming in. We'll wait just another minute. Somebody's coming in. I don't know who's left.
May not be anybody
Oh, okay.
related to the meeting.
Okay, so we're 5 minutes late. Start the meeting. There's no public here, so we can just move on to the past the public comment. And I didn't really do an agenda because the only thing on the agenda is this request RFP, request for proposals for our lake manager. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago. We had quite a few edits after that. So this one's edited, and mostly the edits were, they weren't too many edits.
You know, I gave you all mine and saw most of them in there, so.
Yeah, and I think I just pointed you where your comments were in the RFP, and you were okay with that then, Al, with your comments, and were you okay with does anybody let's start the discussion. Is there any edits or changes or anything to the RFP here? Tyler, did you take a look at this one?
Yeah, I looked at it, looks fine. I guess I would say, just make sure we're updating people on the changes from the last meeting.
Oh, thank you.
That for those that weren't there, how we're just sending out the RFP for a lake manager, not treatment or anything like that right now. I guess those updates, but this current version looks good to me.
And part of the reason for the treatment is we'll want advice from the lake manager on, types of treatment, if we're going on diver assisted. I think we're wanting to try that out this year, coming year, and got some other things that we want to try out, but we want to get some comments and recommendations from the lake manager.
It's an organizational question, and it has to do more with the lake management and the lake treatment. The way I've been involved in these before and involved in other contracts, like the lake manager is really the general contractor.
Yeah.
Lake manager is the one that hires the application group and manages the group. And works intimately with the invasive species committee. Is that how you guys see it?
Yep, and that's how this is written here now, Al, this is just and it's a fancy name, but it's just the lake manager here that we're hiring with this RFP. We can move into the RFP for the treatment, and I can't remember the timeline, was it March or April? We would need to get the start with the Eagle permit for treatment, and so we'll have, hopefully a couple months. And so I guess I do have one more question. The submission deadline was February 1st, and we talked about that, and I couldn't remember where we ended up. I mean, and they're going to Cindy here because she's the township representative, and she's got the township email address, and she's gonna share those that weekend.
That's what we said that we were gonna do, is have them come to me.
Yeah. And she would share those RFPs with us, and we would want to get going on evaluation of those RFPs. And that brings me to my comment or my question about at the end of this document, it talks about how you will be evaluated for the submission requests, proposals, proposal contact, the pricing, the samples, the reference and testimonials. Then, of course, we have the deadline And the evaluation criteria is just really kind of a brief evaluation. We have everything here. And something came up on the computer screen. I want to make sure everybody's hearing us. But, and the evaluation criteria, we kind of need to have that locked in before we open up the RFPs. And I don't know if that's enough, or Kevin, you did a lot of RFPs. I mean, what did you, what kind of, what did you do to evaluate before? Billy probably did a bunch too.
Yeah. We just would do, we do interviews. But
Yeah.
they interview that, and some, when it got tough near the end there, it's like, you breathing, it was hard on getting contractors a lot of times, but
Yeah,
they did, interviews that fair, multiple down, just to make sure they're clarified on the bids and this and that, and then they would usually come, the construction managers would come to us with a recommendation, and,
Mhm.
then we just, they usually give us criteria why they want this one over this one.
And so we're gonna have to kind of develop that ourselves, aren't we? The criteria why we want this one or that one, and then,
And it doesn't always, because we were a public entity, probably like Bill is and you are,
yeah,
you don't always gotta take the low bid.
right.
And so that's, people think you're always, you gotta take what they call best bid or something like that, but there's a criteria, in our business, we just didn't always low bid. And sometimes we'd even take the high and the low and see where it was, but we several times we just went with somebody, whatever the bid was, because we had comfort level,
Mhm.
or had a good, our CM had a good comfort level with their prior work.
Mhm.
And, or just had a bad experience, oh man, this guy, he's low bid for a reason, you don't want to touch them, you know what I mean? So they,
Yeah,
that would sort of be some of the discussions, our CM, they met with the architect a lot of times, to see if they could, were comfortable that this person could perform. A lot of times they invited, for instance, if they built a building, some other place, they would call their buddy who did the masonry work and said, listen, we'd like you to bid
Mm.
on this job, because that architect and the CM had used it before and they had a good track record with that. So, I think we're in a difficult position, because we haven't, our
Yeah.
only experience for a lake manager was Bree and her company.
yeah,
I mean, so, go ahead.
At the end of the day, I think if we sat down, there's enough collective knowledge around this table right now, that we could sit down and put together a pretty good evaluation sheet. What we would evaluate, how we would evaluate it. And by that time, the lake manager will be involved with us. In fact, I don't think our lake manager is gonna leave right away because he's getting some other stuff done, but I don't think it's gonna be that tough to come up with the criteria.
Pretty much got it listed. The only thing I was kind of went back and forth on, and I settled with, I think it's okay the way it's written, is references, because that was a big thing we use. We want to see some of the work they've done and references. And then, we have the first line of the evaluation criteria is qualifications and relevant experience. Well, that's, to me, that is your reference. You're getting that information off the references. So I think I'm okay with that. But that was, other than that, I think we got it. And, the right to refusal covers you for whatever,
Whichever one you want.
right?
yeah,
And references and testimonials is part of the submission requirements section too. So it is
Right.
in there.
Right.
The other thing.
But yeah, that was Bree's recommendation too, was to develop a scoring criteria and then sit down with each submission and have an interview.
yeah, so that means the first part of February is gonna be pretty busy with us, and so this developing the scoring criteria. And I think we talked about maybe not having a meeting here later in the month, and we just go in January with our next meeting at a normal. But we definitely need to lock down the scoring criteria there at our January meeting, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if it necessarily needs to be so much of a scoring criteria, but it might be a good idea to have some prompted questions. And then I think between our discussion and just people's notes on their responses to the questions that we ask, we can probably, use our gut a little bit more than a arbitrary scoring criteria. And Al had mentioned, having Bree still around to assist with scoring criteria. I don't know about that because PLM also might submit a bid. So I don't think it's a fair advantage to have Bree know what our scoring rubric looks like.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
I mean, to me too, I mean, I think each of us. I think we all know what we're looking for, but where the subjectivity is going to come into is. I may look at somebody having, significant strength in one area and you may not see the strength the same. And
Mhm.
so to me, I mean, anything I've been involved in, whether it's grants or job applications or whatever, we've had like a matrix in case you had a lot, when you're
Mhm.
trying to read through 20.
That's kind of what I
To
was going
decide.
for, yeah.
I mean, I would love that to be our problem here. I don't think that's gonna be our problem here.
That's true, yeah.
But I mean, I think it would be really easy to come up with a matrix scorecard, if you will, so that, and it's more for individual use than putting them together and saying, no, that's the one we're hiring. It's more for Phil, you, me to say, okay, I'm gonna give this person an 8 and see how I feel with the next person, more like a just internal personal thing.
Well, we are a public organization. We probably have to have some justification for why we selected this person. And I don't know how you would do that. I mean, that would just save us from, well, with the state, we've been, different lawsuits because I didn't get the bid and why not, so we might have to protect ourselves a little bit with that if we do get more than one bid. I don't know. I hope we get plenty.
And I think the consistent set of questions that have 3 or 4 questions that
Yeah.
There
you
go.
ask the same questions in the same way to this different vendors. And so you're not, going off script, and you just, give it, who would we call to get your, what you call your best reference? Boom, and just have 3 or 4 that you've got in your, so we're not going off on tangents, just, I mean, I think that's when we interview people, we could always have consistent questions that we asked and we made sure they were, cleared by the attorney, about what you're asking, because you've gotta, nowadays, you gotta be careful on
Yeah.
what you're asking and not asking.
Hmm. So we might have to we'll have to bounce those off our attorney then, maybe.
I mean, I don't know.
I can't imagine we would ask any question that would be a protected class kind of
You'd be
question.
surprised. If you're, anything that has to do with their gender or marriage or, you just.
Right, that's like a protected class.
But
Yeah.
you say, can tell me about yourself. Now all of a sudden, you, that's a way of, they can share what they want. You're not, how many kids you got, blah, 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 and you gotta be careful. I mean, I'm just saying that.
Yeah, yeah.
And we ran into the veteran preference too. Because
Another.
veteran preference, if they're within 10% of the low bid, you have to.
Yeah, the state contract.
Yeah, I don't think the township has to,
Is this, no,
I don't think so.
Well, an example of one that wouldn't work real well is if the tribe bid on it. Because then, you might not want the low bid, and you might not like their bid, but you're facing another hurdle, if you turn them down.
No, I mean, they would be equally that. I would encourage the tribe to bid, frankly, I don't see that. So the one person we haven't heard, it looks like Alexis is on here about the whole RFP and other comments. Alexis is really good at some of this stuff, and I'd really like to hear from you, Alexis, if you wouldn't mind about this whole discussion or the RFP or anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, and my apologies. I still haven't had time to devote to it like I had hoped I would at this point. But from what I've, looking over it, it looks really good to me. Thank you all for all your work on it. I think the idea of like a numerical rubric is a good idea. Like you said, just to have justification if we don't go with the lowest bid. Sometimes you need that. And I think we can put that together. Just, a list of things like ranking things like, how they're proven this, if they've done alternative treatments or, if they've are aware of alternate treatments or if they have implemented other things like that. So that kind of ranking, I think is something we'd be interested in.
Yeah.
Just offhand, I think the evaluation criteria that you wrote on there, we can turn some of those into numerical things. And that way we can weight certain things higher, if we want to weight pricing and cost effectiveness at a certain level compared to some of these other ones.
That's
The other
interesting.
thing to sort through is who does the insurance? I got surprised when I asked that question. How is the lake manager covered? How is the application group covered? And how are we covered?
Typically, I ask the contractor to have the insurance that's names the township and this board as one of their beneficiaries or their, I can't think of the term, but we're named on their policy. Additional insured, thank you. Typically, that's the way I do it. I don't know if I addressed that in here. Trying to remember. I don't think so. Should we have that in here?
I don't know if it needs to be in the RFP as much the contract.
Are two different
Right,
things.
when you get to the contract, it should be
Yeah.
in the contract.
Yeah,
Is that what you were saying too, Tyler?
Yeah,
We gotta include the lake manager in there too. Maybe separate than the applicator, but it's, they need to be insured.
okay, so,
I think it needs to be, but I don't think it needs to be along on this right now, but I think as we develop this scorecard or the matrix or whatever you want to call it, it needs to be in there somewhere.
yeah. So maybe this evaluation criteria, to change, to maybe incorporate what Alexis just said would be samples of past work and, examples of perhaps alternative, I mean,
Right, we pretty much covered that in the submission requirements.
yeah,
We've never given companies our evaluation criteria that we're going to,
right.
the score chart of the evaluation criteria.
No, you wouldn't do that.
Right, so I think we're good the way it's
Oh,
listed. you know.
yeah.
We just, before we do any sort of interviews with, say, the top three, or if we do all or whatever, we'll wanna have the criteria for ourselves,
Yeah, that's what
right? And then we can just turn them in and it kind of justifies what the reason why we went with who we selected.
okay.
Then the other thing is subcontractors. Who the application, say the application folks are familiar with chemical application, but for vegetation pulling or something like this, they have no experience, so they have to hire another applicator to come in and do that. Would the lake manager treat that separately from application, or would they do that? We need to kind of give them some direction there.
this RFP is not for any treatment, Al. So any chemical treatment, hand pulling, mechanical would be a separate RFP that would be developed by the lake manager and sent out, and then we would get sealed bids on treatments.
That satisfies me 100%. this is a minor point, but we need to have a date on these documents someplace. I don't know what date this last document was generated at, and I don't know if it was the last document.
Oh, yeah,
Unless I went back and looked at all the documents and looked for wording changes and stuff like that.
my apologies, I've just been using the same document. I grabbed Tyler's and then added a bunch of stuff and this. And then the last, meeting, I changed some things based on our conversations at that meeting. So yeah, my apologies, Al, I can
That's okay.
certainly.
Not the end of the world.
So what do you think? There maybe a motion on the table?
I think it looks good. I'll make a motion that we accept this RFP.
Okay, is there support?
I'll support.
Is that Tyler or Al?
Who wants to blame? Target.
Al, is that you? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So now is the discussion. I mean, we've already had some of the discussion, but is there any other further discussion that is the date okay? Or, I mean, that gives people some time after the holidays. I was worried about, you know, based on Tyler's comment about one of the conferences he went to, that a lot of people wouldn't apply for it, so I wanted to give them plenty of time. Although, you know, people may wait till the last week to, to do it, but I don't know. That's the only discussion point I had as far as,
Well, the lake manager is gonna be around for a little while. I mentioned that earlier. We gotta get our data in the right format and in the right place so we know where it is. Whatever we're gonna send the contractors for application, they're gonna wanna see what, they wanna know something about Portage Lake, so they're gonna wanna see the past reports and stuff like this. We need to prepare some packages for whoever's gonna be submitting a bid.
well, I've included everything that we've received. Now Bree talked about having this done within a week or two. Her year report, her yearly annual report. And I guess as soon as she's available, gets that, but I'd like to wait till after the first of the year, frankly, to. There's a lot going on between now and then, but if she says that she has it available, then maybe we can have the meeting on December 16th, I think it was supposed to be our next scheduled meeting.
I'll
But
make sure that there's some budget money to cover it too. So we're not mentioning up her work, finishing up for us versus her work that she's assisting us in moving forward, or her work in getting it to the point where we can move it forward with anybody and she doesn't have to be involved.
no, I think I heard you okay, Al. Somebody helped me with but yeah, she needs to finish her annual report.
Yes.
And we need to, and as soon as we approve that, then we'll put it on the website, and then those folks that are bidding have, Cindy's been great putting stuff on the website here, and it's getting a lot better. And so I did, in this RFP, I referenced that our website to get information about what's been happening with, you know, it's got all the annual reports except for our current year.
Then there's some integration of data that needs to be, you know, we've got data for 10 years. We want to continue on with that, not lose the data when we come up with new data, right? We want to, it's pretty smooth transition.
Well, we want new improved with, you know, where we can have it on a geospatial map, you know, where we have the data on a geospatial map, where we can take a look at that easily.
Yeah. In regard to what was in the request, and it said to identify all fish species in the lake. It said something like that. And I didn't know that they really went after any fish species in the lake. We put that as an add-on, and we were considering continuing to do that. But this one made it sound like definitive. You got to get the species of fish that are in the lake.
Well, no,
Yeah, let them do that.
It's for an example, I mean, it gives the, it asks for the, you know, the lake manager, the things that the lake manager has done, but it's an example of things that we've done in the past where we did a fish survey here recently and so, you know, we would have, and maybe some other things like, restoration or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a while since I looked at this frankly, and, but yeah, there is on the top of page 3, you're talking about the fish.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, this may be things that we would include, you know, so,
So one thing I'm questioning, and I have to admit, when you, Tyler, and I were at the last meeting, we really just had a lot we were talking about.
yeah.
Why, what I remember, I thought was we wanted these back for our January meeting. Were we concerned about?
Couldn't remember. I remember the timeline having to submit the permits was that they needed to be submitted by March or April. And I just cannot remember what Bree said for the amount of time that our manager would need to find those subcontractors and get those permits sent out.
What you
I
want
mean,
to
I'm
Anyway.
fine if we want to move it up to a January submission, because I do think we talked about that. We gave them all of January after the holiday, because originally we were trying to get this by January 1st, and we decided that that was too much to fit that in.
Yeah, and we were talking about getting this out before the holidays, so everybody could kind of see it and chew on it, knowing that when they got back, that would still give them close to 3 weeks to get it done.
I think if you're
So,
expecting to get done.
That's what I thought we talked about.
So do we want, I mean, that's the reason why I brought it up. I couldn't remember what we talked about. I know that, I mean, our January meeting is probably January 20th.
Right.
And if we wanna move it up to the 17th or the 15th or something like that for submission, I'm okay with that. You know, I just gotta give people time to look over our stuff, and I don't know how long it would take to put a proposal together for a contractor.
Well, the reality is, nobody's gonna do any work between, Christmas and New Year's. I don't care who you are. You might go
Yeah.
into good intention, but I bet most of the money I've got in my drawer that, I won't pick up the report, and probably nobody else will. So I think we can get it out by mid-January. I think because number one, we're a known entity to the state. That should make the applicator and the lake manager feel pretty good that they're coming into a well-established program. And I think the state would look at it that way as well.
So the one issue we would have to do then, we would have to get our canned questions before the January 20th then, because if we had the submittals, if Cindy had the submittals here mid-January before our January meeting, then we would need to have our canned questions. And so that means, before we open those RFPs, right? No, I mean, I have to, you know, when for the state government, I have to have everything set before we open up the RFPs, and then we evaluate based on that. Now, other agencies may be able to set up the questions after we open up the RFPs, but then it's kind of, you may be slanting the questions towards the person that you want, and so you have to be kind of careful with that. In my mind, so I'm happy to get it done mid-January. It's just we need to meet again and develop those questions, in my opinion.
Well, and I mean, I don't care when they're due, as long as we have enough time, you know, to do the interviews, have somebody in place, blah, 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 blah.
Or what happens if you don't give any responses?
Yeah,
I don't think we're gonna get a lot, just in talking about how many even companies there probably are.
well, Bree sent us a list of
I know.
companies, and that was nice of her.
And then Tyler talking about some discussions we had. I mean, I'm thinking if we get 3 or 4, we're gonna be fortunate. That's just a guess, but
Yeah, I'm saying if you do it soon enough and say you get one, you know, the same one or two, you
Yeah,
know, maybe you wanna, you know, or maybe because and you say, hey, I have to call some of these people, why didn't you submit? Well, we would have submitted, but these couple things in this thing were more than the scope we normally do, or we
Yeah.
were nervous about this part, and
no,
you know, maybe some of that stuff scares people off. I don't know, you know, or we're just not, we're not, we don't have the capacity of our company to do those, a lot of, you know, there's not just, there's some things on there that I don't know typical lake managers do or don't do, but
yeah.
there
might
could be some things that's not in the scope of their company. or
Right,
something. So I'm just saying, that's why I don't think it hurts to be early in case you gotta retool or something.
yeah, yeah, I mean, we can certainly send out, continue the RFPs if we find somebody, we don't. If we had, we don't like what we got, you know,
Yeah, or if there's something in the RFP that's steering people away,
right,
that, you know, you know, I just don't wanna deal with that
yeah,
because of this and this. And maybe if it's enough, maybe we say, maybe we need to take that out. You know, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a non-issue.
And you should be able to do an addendum to it where, you know, but you have to notify all parties,
can repost it, yeah,
so.
yeah.
if we knew what our end date was for when we wanted a new contract signed, and somebody knew taking it, then I think we can work backwards how much time we have.
When
Yeah.
is Bree's job done?
Well, I think it's an annual thing, but December, end of December, but she needs to finish her lake manager duties, report annual.
And like Tyler said, the main thing is, you know, to get the permits so they can do their job the following summer.
April would be the and, you know, it takes a month or two sometimes, and
Yeah,
First.
that's my concern is right now with the timeline. So if we keep it at February 1st, we have to do interviews, select someone, get a contract drafted,
Gotta go through
and
a township meeting.
get them up to speed on the state of Portage Lake if it isn't PLM. Then they need to be able to send out an RFP to a contractor to get permits submitted. So all of that has to happen by April.
so
I think we need to move it up.
move it up, so that's why we have the discussions. So we can amend what is kind of the recommended dates, what's the consensus as far as dates, and Phil can amend his motion, I guess. What do you think, who wants to comment?
Well, I think the January 17th is probably the best one. And then maybe our 20th meeting, we do our scorecard. And then if we have time, we can open bids and start reviewing them. I think that's going to be a long process. I don't know that we're going to do that in one meeting. Depending on how many get, you know, sent in, but you're gonna have a lot of data to review for each.
We made it clear that we want a monetary number for what they're proposing, or we just want the proposal, the verbiage for the proposal. When the cost to be established, the proposal is accepted.
The submission requirements includes pricing now, so
Okay. It doesn't have to.
and it's an annual anticipated budget, so, I mean, it
I think that's kind of a big factor in determination, so I think it should be in there.
yeah,
I'm just saying if there's a hesitancy to supply that number because there's too many unknowns from their standpoint. What are we gonna do?
Okay.
I'm good for
so,
it. As it is. We may have to fine tune it a little bit. I'm just saying, you know, there may be some subject to change, in which case we'll notify them of the change. Before they submit their bids. We discover some XYZ chemical that's gonna work wonders for us and we want to try it. It wasn't in the original contract.
It sounded like Phil just amended his motion to make it.
I can make it. I would like to amend the motion to accept the proposal with the addition that we change the deadline from February 1st to January 17th.
And Al, do you still support it?
Yes,
More discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed, the same sign? Okay, so let's get the questions together, the interview questions, and I don't know, you go back to some of the questions you asked some of the contractors, Captain, too. You can help us remember some of those and,
Well, some of the stuff we'll have to figure out what's most important to us. You know, in treatment of aquatic invasive species, you know.
well, that's
So-
the SAD, yeah.
Right, you know, so we'll have to wait, what's the most important, what are we gonna score the highest? So as a committee, we have to determine that, and then we'll build off that, you know. Price may or may not play into it, you know, you can put a scale of, you know, 1 to 10.
So with that, under this evaluation criteria, Alexis kind of suggested that we weight some of those evaluation criteria. And so that would be the detailed service descriptions and methodologies. Is that what you just said, maybe? Is it, or?
Right, and you know, you could, if that's our most important, we could score that from 1 to 20. You know, and then, you know, maybe the qualification and relevant experience is next most important. So you score that, you know, 1 to 15. And you kind of step it down so that, you know, whoever scores the highest in your description and methodologies, that's who you're leaning towards. They're gonna have an upper hand unless they're really, you know, maybe they're price prohibited or, you know, their past work says no. You know, but that's where you gotta kind of score that and give it whatever is most important to the committee needs to have the highest score.
Are we still having a regular December meeting? I just wanna,
I guess it depends on if we can finish this up or not. But it sounds
cause
like.
I was just thinking, you know, an idea for, to get this done maybe easier is have every member of the committee think of 2 questions that they might like to ask. And then at our regular meeting, we could pare that down, choose 3 or 4 questions, and then also get the scoring rubric dialed in at the next meeting. Unless you guys really want to take the time to figure out how you want to do the scoring rubric and come up with questions at this one.
Oh,
I
okay.
like that idea.
Yeah, gives us 2 weeks to do it.
Because, you know, I'm confused, if I'm a vendor and I'm gonna try to bid this job. It sounds like, you know, how you gonna bid this job? For instance, it's almost like you should put together like cause you know, when you're bidding a bid package, you say, I need this many feet of bricks and I need this many feet of that, and I need, so
I know.
you're comparing apples to apples. And so I'm thinking, how are we gonna apples to apples compare, when we have a, you know, pricing, vegetation survey, okay, I check for a vegetation survey, our firm charges $250 an hour or something like that, so you know, boom, we could do that. Then she says invasive species treatment per acre cost. Well, they're not gonna do the treatment, they're gonna do the overseeing of the treatment. You know, and so you'd almost have to see what their cost is per hour to do something like that. And then
Yeah,
water quality monitoring. Well, I don't know, we charge, you know, this much per thing, and it costs us, we figure with our crew, it's gonna cost us this much. So somehow it's almost like you gotta have like a common template where you're saying we need what do you charge for this? What do you charge for the annual report? What you charge for this? So I don't, that way you sort of can compare their pricing. That's what bugs me a little bit here. I just don't know
You can ask them the rate, you can ask them to publish their rates to us.
the
I,
rates.
I brought that up at the last meeting, Kevin, and threw that out of development of a bid sheet that would be
Yes.
uniform. And Bree basically stated that those firms like all kind of have their own stock, RFP submission and all this stuff already kind of figured out.
Okay.
Because I wondered if that would be too hard for the contractors as well. That's why I was questioning whether or not a bid sheet was a good idea, and Bree did not feel that it was necessary.
So they have a standard fee to be the annual lake manager, boom, and they have an annual fee.
Want to do each one of those things, the vegetation survey,
Yeah.
it's gonna, and it talks about earlier.
And I mean, like,
Oversight, I guess it could be the oversight of the basis.
or presenting, I mean, the annual report she develops, and then how
Yeah,
you present to the board, they don't do those for free, what I mean?
that's all kind of listed earlier, but.
One of the things that's gonna happen is.
It's not clear on this submission.
There's a certain, rate for their lake managers. If you take Bree, for example, she's got so many years' experience, she's got, doctorate degrees in, environmental science, I think it's doctorate degrees, et cetera, et cetera. So her charge would be X. But she said, I know your lake so well, you're already getting discounts with, what we charge you. We don't charge you our normal rate. And I just listened to it. I didn't comment on it at all. But
Yeah, and if you look at Bree's last or PLM's last submission, that's basically how it's worded. When they broke down their annual cost, it was the like the lake assessment, the annual report, each had a line item amount, and then basically everything else that we asked that were roles of the lake manager or whatever, whether that's overseeing treatments, it goes into like a lake manager duties line item. And it was like a separate, 7,500 for the year as a catch-all.
Oh, okay, so we got sort of like a past experience of how we're being billed to look at, so we can somewhat compare.
you can ask them, they may come back and say they're not willing to release that information. We'll give you the cost, but we're not gonna give you the mathematics to get there.
Well, it is public knowledge. I wonder if it's on the township website, how much we pay. I think it's probably not as easy to find, though. You have to dig into the
They could
budget.
look at budget,
Yeah,
maybe figure it out.
it might be in the lake report too. It's still saying.
Well, I just wondered, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I just trying to think about if I got 5 proposals in front of me, how I'm gonna, weigh them by even pricing,
And the other thing that we didn't put in our request for proposal is evidence that they have sufficient equipment and stuff like that. I don't know if we've got 2 guys in a John boat in one application group versus a professional group. We have no way of differentiating that. I think we're asking,
That may come out with the experience too.
yes. I've seen that before with painters and stuff like this. You get a group that comes in and after the first half day, they don't belong there. But we got some work ahead of us.
So let's define what work we need to have done again for next meeting. So you're talking about the evaluation rubric and the criteria. And
What
we don't
date?
necessarily.
Meeting the 19th?
16, I think.
I want to say 16. Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's December 16th, yep. Yep, 2 weeks from today. Guess we'll have it at 4:30. So again, a couple of interview questions. And Your evaluation criteria rubric. Scoring.
Are you writing this down? Somebody,
I think our secretary is doing, did she come? Oh, you were just gonna record it. Were you gonna put those two things then?
Yeah, I have this recorded to send to Michelle.
Okay,
yeah,
Okay,
mine
so-
is- we're up there, read it. Nobody's-
yeah, we'll send this meeting to Michelle, so we'll have. We had a motion, we've approved the motion, so that'll be in the notes, and then we'll, task for 2 weeks is to. Evaluation criteria, I can change the dates. To January 17th in the 2 locations. Are there any other locations or anything else that? We need to change on this RFP?
What about Doug, just for kicks?
Mm-hmm.
So Cindy's got, say this guy's or gal of this company's trying to put together a bid to be the new lake manager. And they have questions about, what are we exactly looking for, this and that. Is Cindy gonna be the point person on that too?
I can, I don't know.
I just think, I'm just saying if they need, if someone needs some, clarification, so what do you, hey, what are you looking for here? I'm trying to complete this, just so there's a point person they can ask that
Yeah,
question to.
So,
I think Doug should be the point person. The only reason we chose me receiving this because it had the
I
township.
gotcha. I mean, that's right, Doug, I mean,
gee, thanks.
yeah, no, I'm just saying.
No, I agree.
They might
It is.
wanna,
It is,
you may lose a good vendor because they
right,
don't.
Understand
There's some
something,
confusion,
yeah.
and who are they gonna call, township office?
no,
They're gonna have to call somebody.
yeah.
I almost think there should be, because we had to do this with the state is, if you're talking to somebody that's bidding, everybody that's bidding needs to have that information.
Right.
Well, we don't know who's bidding, which makes that very difficult,
Yeah.
but it's almost like, do you put something in here that if you wish to be kept up to date on any addendums,
Would you?
please include your contact information immediately to Doug Berry. So that if there's a question asked and that you clarify it for one vendor, everybody, there's an email that goes out to the rest of them. And I know it seems like a pain in the butt, but then you get into well, they had unfair advantage because they knew you could do that. We didn't.
Yeah,
Well, I
but
guess
if you put in that thing and the guy chooses not to call Doug, then you know what, it's sort of too bad, so sad. You should have had a chance to call to get clarification.
Well, what I can do is, we have a list that Bree has submitted. I think I have a couple more names that I'm gonna submit, so maybe if I do get questions for clarification, I'll send it to everybody that we submit the proposal to. Obviously, this has to be on the township website, right, for bid, or,
If it's on the township, that would be the great place. Then it's up to them. The proposal is here and any addendum to the proposal will be included on the website. So then you do addendum 1, whatever it is.
Would there be any objection to having him prepare a bid for us? Given that so many acres of milfoil, so many this, so many that, and 2,200 acre lake, and
I didn't hear the question very well, Al. Would you mind repeating it?
give them the same information made up, of course, of what they would be doing, and then asking them to price out this package. So you tell them how many acres of milfoil you have, you tell them how much this you have and that you have. And let them come back with, here's how I'm gonna treat it, here's what I'm gonna treat it with, and here's what it's gonna cost you.
We're not getting treatment quotes though on this.
No,
I think it would be a good idea to make sure that a previous annual report is available so that they can reference it for their RFP, so they at least know what size lake they're dealing with and all of
Yeah,
that.
I checked the lake management report. It's in there, how many gallons of this, how many gallons of that, how many acres were treated, where they were. That's in every one of our reports, at least 5, 6 years I look backward on it. I've done that with one company, a couple of companies, who are building custom equipment. That worked out pretty well. You got down to what some of the issues were pretty quick. But maybe killing a fly with a baseball bat if we use these guys, I don't know.
You can say something, Kevin?
Well, I was sort of thinking the same thing, is that, you know, if you set up a scenario and say, you know, that this is what, you know, we did last year, or, you know, here's what we heard, we need a lake management report, we need that turbidity test, we need this, we need that, here's, and then not the treatment, but the oversight of the treatment. You know, what would you charge us to do what was done in fiscal, you know, like last year, you know, in all these things that we had, our lake manager did. And then they know at least, hey, well, here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at 3, 4 township meetings. I'm looking at 1 annual report. I'm looking at 3 times I had to have my crews out here to do these different surveys. And, you know, then maybe you're comparing more apples to apples, because that's, you know, all of it.
The data's there, so it's nothing, we don't have to go invent any data. We just need to get it in the format that people understand, and if they
Yeah, we-
Township board understood the format it was in. I think these guys will understand it.
Yeah, the only data we don't have is this year's, so everything else is on the township website, which
Point
is
out.
referenced.
I'll ask where this year is, given a date. And she said mid-February, mid-January.
She said she was making good progress and should have it in a couple of weeks. I hopefully will have it before the next, she texted me during the meeting here. She's at a different meeting.
Not putting get the answer.
I
Okay.
will bug her and hopefully get that report for the next. Although, yeah, she can do the report, and then we'll have to ask her to leave to develop our questions and evaluation criteria. So if she has a lake manager report, we can put her right on the agenda for the beginning to share information, and then go into a closed session essentially for the evaluation and question criteria.
And maybe Al, that's part of the questions when we're doing the budget, just put it, okay, here's the scenario, we need this, we need this, we need this, and according to your proposal, what's that gonna cost us? You know, and that way we maybe could back into, you know, so they know exactly, so now we're comparing money wise to the person, because we know that this is, you know, this is the service we got last year, it cost us 50 or 30 or whatever.
Yeah,
Now, we just, you know, we know a little, they give us some criteria to see, because there's some vague stuff in here. I mean, as far as I'm concerned.
it was intentional.
I agree, but it's just hard to.
Because, you know, I wanted to get as many people,
Sure.
but it's gonna be harder for us to evaluate. Cause it's, you know, it's apples to oranges.
And I think with their like general pricing sheet, we'll have a pretty good idea. We can look at it and see. I think we won't know is like you're saying, what is included in this.
Yeah.
But, you know, those are questions that we will have to ask for sure during the interview.
Hopefully it's an hourly rate, and then, you know, I mean, if we require additional data or additional treatment or whatever, then, you know, we can compare that apple to apples, but I don't know. I don't know how to handle that, Kevin, because I want people to bid on it, but how do we get that? I mean, we kind of want to get that out there as soon as possible, it's out there as soon as possible. But if we, you know, I don't know.
Well, it probably come down to the person who called you. I mean,
Yeah.
what exactly is the annual report? What does it mean? Well, you gotta do it this, you gotta submit to the township, you know, it's gotta be a, you know, a printed thing. I mean, I don't know who pays for all that, you know?
And usually when I get questions from contractors like that, I'm very careful. And mostly what I'll do is just point them to the website where our township is. And, you know, reference our previous, what we required for our
You
previous.
could look at a previous annual
Yeah.
report.
Yeah,
And you know, we're sort of used to that and just let the person know that, you know, this is, you know, we don't want a two-pager, you know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah,
Well,
and
the
it
first-
does talk about it in here, you know, that, you know. Here, I think it's for the beginning that, you know. And for more information, see the Onekama Township Invasive Species Committee, you know, it's got a website right here in the overview at the bottom paragraph where you can get all this information, but.
You know, and if we can get those questions through this group, we can get it through to the contractors.
But that would be a good scenario, like Phil said, to have here's what we need, what would your cost be in the interview question, you know? If we need bump, boom, 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 and figure it out backwards, and then they say, well, you know, one guy's 6,000, one guy's 66,000, the other person's, you know,
Yeah,
42,000, I don't know, you know, maybe it helps you. Either they don't understand.
When we bid the kayak launch on Portage Lake, it was open the bids and the guys would come down here, they were all there. The bids went from 92,000 to 385,000, same equipment, same checklist. Well, we didn't have to talk to the 300,000 guy much longer, because he was way off.
so
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
You can get quite a lot of variation, especially, you know, I don't think any contractor we're gonna find for this job here is gonna be within 50 miles of here. I don't know if there are any applicators within 50 miles of here that can handle the job. So there's travel costs and all that crap.
So Alan, the township budget, do you have it broken down enough, so if we sat here in 2 weeks from now, we'd know basically the Breeze Lake management duties and the duties we have in here, you know, what were we paying her to do that function? You know, not the application, the oversight of the application. Could we,
Oh,
could
got
we,
the contract,
We should have enough.
what's that?
got the contract.
But I'm saying, what do we know we paid her annually?
I can get that real easy.
Yeah, I mean, what are those criteria? Because we're breaking, you know, last time, as I understand, the township went from
She's got-
application and things, so it's hard to ferret out some of those costs. Because we used there for the applications and the oversight.
Let me look at one of her
And also,
invoices.
it all goes against the SAD, and if it all goes against the SAD, he wants it in one place.
Yeah, it's the SOD. And I think we get like about 87 and it's varied over the years. But again, the consulting service requested are as follows on the first page. Those three things are what we're asking for. The rest in here, we may be doing, you know, the fish surveys and other things, but those three things, that's what they're bidding on, is those three things. And we're evaluating, you know, those three things on, you know, the submission requirements. So that's what they need to answer, those three things. And if they don't answer those three things, you know, in their proposal, then we have the right of refusal, or if you want, you can interview the person and these, I mean, we'll have discretion.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, for me as a layperson on here, it'd be nice to know how much money was it costing us in the last so many years to get those three things done?
Yeah,
You know, because, you know, that is just the three, you know, the functions, what we feel the functions of a lake manager are, not actually the blending of the, you know, the application, you know, the oversight of the application, but not the physically doing it.
I would say that quality of that type of information has improved over the past couple, 2-3 years, so. I wouldn't want to go back 9 years in history and try to use some of those numbers.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Go back
so
to.
I happen to have 3 invoices of Breeze because in the transition.
sure.
She didn't get paid, and the 3 invoices I'm looking at, it's pretty clear, you know, I mean, it's XYZ treatment, boom. You know, the hand pulling, and then other times, So that one's all a treatment one. One before it is entirely treatment, and then one before is like consultant professional services, lake management plan, newsletter, water quality program, so it's pretty easy to give you like a chart maybe.
Yeah, I'd just be curious what, what so when we get to that evaluation part, we sort of know, hey, here's what a lake manager costs us, per year in the last couple of years, and.
Yeah, as long as your invoices are broken up, I think that's something I can get the invoices and then try to come up with something. And then you guys can say, hey, no, I need to know this. And I can try to figure it out.
Do you want it incorporated into the RFP, or are you just gonna have it?
No, I think it's more just information for us. to-
Information for us.
I just wanted.
When we go to
I wanted
the
clear that.
interviews or the conversations with the
Okay, good,
potential vendors.
good, because that gives the people a month and a half to look at this, because, I should have these two or three changes done in, tomorrow morning, so then we can put it out there. I mean, we can, I guess, brief on us a note, I haven't got all the information of the additional people, but I think probably a good idea to have it posted on the township website too. A request for proposal. What do you guys think to have it?
That's
So
good.
everybody has a chance to bid on it, and we're not just selecting those companies that, well, Bree gave us and what we can come up with is.
Well,
Yes, if you guys any trouble with putting the data in, and the person she's gonna have trouble with in that data is Phil Marion.
The person you're gonna have trouble with is who, Al?
The bait shop owner. If they get down to,
Oh.
if they get down to, chemical analysis and all that kind of stuff, some of that can be misinterpreted, and he's got a little habit of misinterpreting information.
Well, he can call me.
Well, let me ask Bree if she has an objection to that data being published. The manager's report is published.
so,
Yeah, because I don't know what, Cindy, the township criteria is. I know that
Yeah.
the school, I had to go through this, it's called Builders Exchange, and you had to post it, and there was different criteria you had to follow.
which I've got to find out.
Yeah, and there's probably David or somebody, they do RPs for asphalt or this or that, and they may even have sometimes you have a threshold. The state of Michigan had a threshold where you didn't even have the competitive bid. I mean, it was a certain dollar amount where you didn't have to.
Yeah, I'll talk to David or Ed, because, I mean, what my gut tells me, from just some other things I've seen, my guess is there's no policy or procedure about that. And then based on what, when we react to some things at a meeting, sometimes I'm only looking at one bid. I don't know how it got there. So, I'm not saying that's not gonna change in the future, but right now, but I will double check, because I don't wanna send anything out without running it by, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page.
Policy is that anything under $30,000 does not require, I think it's 30, 20. One of those two numbers does not require a competitive bid. Unless
Is that 30,000 at the township level?
it's written.
Yeah, the schools had the same thing, it was like
Yeah, could be.
19 or 20, there's a threshold where you didn't have to do competitive bids.
Bill's asking me a question while we were talking. He's saying, isn't there a website where as I remember, there's a township organization where you can,
TA,
MTA, where maybe you could even post it there.
yeah, maybe. I mean, I've done some stuff on the website, but I haven't looked for that.
Cause I would
There's
think
a-
somewhere.
There's a government bids page too, like.
I did,
there's- Yeah,
that's for state things though, and I don't really wanna, there's a certain amount of bureaucracy associated with that.
Right. And that's why I was just wondering, you would think like the Michigan Aquaculture Association or whoever
Yeah,
would have, a place where you could post stuff like that for their vendors and their members to vote on.
yeah, Tyler, did that conference that you attended recently, did they have a professional organization that maybe we could post it on their site?
Really, it's just Midwest Lakes and Streams Association. But I don't think that that's something that they do. And that's even who I reached out to from our meeting with DNR, that we had a couple months ago. You guys suggested reaching out to Melissa DeSimon about example RFPs that she might have, and she never responded to my email. So I don't know if it's really something that they facilitate. I think they should, probably. It would be helpful, but
Mhm.
The other thing we would need to do for next year is, give the township input as to whether we should do any more fish study. The next step, which was gobies or whatever the case is. That cannot go on the SAD right now, and they're not gonna modify the current SAD to accept it. It could be put into the next version of SADs. So this one would be a standalone cost.
In the township would pay, so I guess, oh, I lost it, so
You got some
But
time.
what I fear is we get only one bid. And some company comes after the fact and says, I didn't know about it. So, posting it on a public website like the township, I think will kind of help us with some of that questions later.
Al, does anybody on the township board have any historical knowledge? I mean, initially, when you did this first, we got the millage passed, and then you did your first year when I think they had multiple vendors that applied, or didn't you renew Bree halfway through or something? So would David have that historical knowledge of how you guys listed it or did something?
Let me see if I can find the information. Mary's data was pretty well organized, and the paper files are what been transferred around, and every time they get transferred around, a lot of them get lost.
Okay, but there's been how many rounds of lake manager hires been? There's the initial one, once the millage passed, and then her contract's been renewed?
Yeah.
Yes.
As far as I know.
Yeah, so there's been, yeah, so was there, during that renewal phase, was there a public bids for it, or it was just a renewal, or initially, because there was multiple people the first time, as I recall, because the question was, were you gonna have the applicator be also the lake manager? And I think that was, people went for her bid particularly because it was cheaper, that they felt that she packaged them together and it was a lot better price than some of the other vendors.
Mhm.
Try and get the data. I think I can. I have a good enough relationship with Bree. If they have the information, she probably can get it faster than I can dig through the files and the township.
Okay. Okay,
Usually in a contract, you have it for 3 years and with possible extension for whatever you want to do,
And then there's the person that takes it away from the giant and he can put it in her desk. So you don't lose the data.
So this one is 3 years. I didn't put in, with, possible extensions. I didn't include that, but, I don't think anybody's gonna bid for just 1 year to do all the work and then they kick them out. So,
Well, that's why we said it's 3 years, right?
yeah, yep.
And what we're dealing with right now, it's 3 years for the lake manager. When we address the applicator, we'll address their time frame too, and probably be the same.
We'll find out.
Yes. Is that it?
Anything else? So we got 2 things we gotta do. We gotta get the questions for the applicants and the evaluation for of our criteria for our next meeting. Evaluation criteria.
Yeah.
And I'll get this just amended for Cindy put out there. I'll also, uh, pressure Bree to have, give us our annual report for the 16th, and then we can move on. So it might be a long meeting next time. Sorry, folks.
And maybe Al's gonna check on to see how they did it before.
Yes,
And then Cindy's gonna break out roughly what we're paying annually for a lake manager. Based on
Thank you.
last year's cost, so we at least get a feel for where we're at.
Yep.
By current billing. Cause I think the numbers way down, but that's because applications are down. You know, hers probably, the charges are probably really same as far as the annual report, the testing. Her fees may be down a little bit because if she's not oversighting
'Cause
application.
she was locked in too.
What's that?
She was locked into those fees too, based on the contract, and they're gonna go up, I'm sure.
Sure.
Tyler, did you get a deer?
Just thinking
Before you-
ahead,
Here's Phil's question.
because she does two presentations. She does one to us, and she does one to the township.
Right,
Should we not have her do the one to us? I mean, I think most of us, with the exception of Cindy, fairly new, have
Yeah.
seen it in,
I don't know.
maybe we could just
I had a
see it
print,
at the township level, if we wanna see it in person,
or review the written document.
right?
I mean, if she's got, I mean, last time she didn't do the full blown, full on discussion, because we told her not to. We said, what's changed or what's new, just give us the highlights and maybe some bullet points or whatever. I think we can probably have a quick overview, bullet
Quick
points,
synopsis, not
Yeah.
the full in-depth.
5-10 minutes discussion, and
Yeah.
then,
well, there is one, the reports on the website too.
yeah.
Report for 2022.
Want to sit here and listen to a 2-hour lake management plan update and then go into
Well,
the
No.
rubric.
you're paying her to come over, travel time,
Well,
I mean, it's.
She might be able to do it virtually. That would be better. Yeah, I think a virtual would probably be enough because we've seen it. Cindy's got a question. No?
And you can get to see it at the township level anyway. right?
Yeah, I get to see it. Alexis, I'm gonna go back to you.
They saved me 2 presentations.
Alexis, I'm gonna go back to you. Anything further to add before we break?
I'll make a motion to,
No, I'll let Alexis, I wanna pressure Alexis to talk to us again, because.
No, no, yeah, that I'm all set. I've jotted down some questions while I have some time now to look at it, so I'll try to forward those to you tomorrow. I have some ideas of rubric.
Okay.
ratings, but
Okay, great, thank you.
now motion to adjourn.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Al.
Yeah, I'll call you tomorrow, Doug.
Okay,
Hopefully,
good.
the timing of the answers.
yeah. All right, thank you.
thanks.
Kevin, you connecting with deer?
Asking for you to do.
Me? No, I got a little one. I'm going to get a bigger one next weekend.
Didn't fill the freezer, eh?
Nah, I got to order it. I'm not doing it well.
I got 35 big game heads on with our home.
Huh?
Say that again, Al.
I got 35 African, European, and North American and Canadian hunting trophies. They have done
Wow.
in hunts.
Oh,
And
Al.
we're probably gonna have to tell her how, because I'm gonna have to move into more intensive care.
Oh.
So going down from 5,000 square foot down to 1,000 square foot.
Oh,
And I have about 20 guns.
Oh, my goodness.
holy cow.
Last time I talked to you, Al, you said the guns don't leave the house.
No, they haven't left us. No, if I had to do it all over again, I'd just have a 270, a 375, a 22 long rifle, and a couple of pistols. That's it. You don't need any more than that for hunting.
No.
Yeah, well,
I've killed grizzly with a 270.
hey, my wife only needs 5 pair of shoes too. We got 50, so you know what? It happened.
But my wife used to get my hunting expenses that I used to put in quick, and she'd print them out, and she'd add that to her jewelry fund.
There you go.
So when you use quick and you think you're gonna save time, be careful how you use it.
Yeah,
Okay, well, have a good night, Al.
well,
Thanks, Al.
see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah.